It is 9:30, the appointed time for the January 21st meeting of the Wood County Board of Supervisors. We will call that meeting to order. I will ask that all supervisors sign in, and I see they did. Supervisor Hendler is excused.
Supervisor Moody needs to check in, and Supervisor Holcamp confirm. And Supervisor Rozar confirm, and Supervisor Nelson confirm. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So, you know, we've been having some issues with your keypads, to say the least. We've done extensive testing, this, that, and the other thing. I sent them all into the company, and they checked them all out. They all work very well in an environment outside of this room. So, and you know that there's been a lot of renovations going on in this room, new video conferencing equipment and this and that. And so we've been doing different things, trying to get them to work well in this room. We haven't found a great solution yet, so testing is ongoing. We've played around with them a lot, even yet this morning. So moving the receiver, doing this, we're still doing different things, but the keypads themselves have all checked out. So there's still things going on. So today, we're still keeping our fingers crossed. So bear with me till we find the solution to it. As you remember, this didn't start until a couple of months ago. There were no problems. And so don't know if it's ghosts or what in here, but we'll keep trying.
Supervisor Moody, does yours confirm?
So one of the things that we found was moving to different places in the room, not just from where you're sitting, seemed to make a difference. And sometimes different people, had different problems with them. Sometimes it was one supervisor and sometimes it was another. But Terry, yeah, Terry Rickaby, do you want to pick hers up, move a couple steps closer and try and confirm her? See, moving one step one way or the other makes a difference sometimes, not all the time.
So how long is
It's a ghost.
arm?
Yeah, it's a ghost in here. I don't know.
You're going to get some exercise today, Ruth. Okay, so we are all signed in. This really up here does not sound like it's on, but maybe it is out there. We are all signed in. We do have the roll taken. At this time, call Supervisor Moody forward for the invocation. When she does reach the podium up here, I would ask that you please stand and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Supervisor Moody, you want to come forward?
Good morning. Good morning. Almighty God, we give you thanks, for you are the creator of all life and goodness. We praise you for the world you have made us to build up and enjoy. Help us to be faithful heralds of healing and hope. Grant us an awareness of healing needs of those around us and a compassion to respond willingly to those needs. Make us aware of the decisions we are making today to do the right or the wrong, and be with our veterans and their families serving around the world. All this we ask in your dear name. Amen.
Please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That gets us started here today. First order of business is the minutes from the previous session, and I would entertain a motion to approve by Clendenning and a second by Mahan. Any discussion on those minutes? Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor of approval, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Excusals today, as I mentioned before, we have Supervisor Hendler. Resignations, we have none. Appointments, none. And under reappointments to the Civil Service Commission, Diane Lieber for a 5-year term, and I need a motion to that effect for that approval by Supervisor Nelson, second by Supervisor Hochkamp. Any discussion on that reappointment? All in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that carries unanimously. Any public comment today? Do we have anybody here from the public that wants to comment on any of the agenda items? Any public comment? Any public comment? Okay, no public comment. Acknowledgements and recognitions, none that are listed anyway, unless anybody has any out there. We do have a special order of business today. Venture Architects is here. We're going to have an informational presentation regarding the space needs implementation, progress, procedures, and their processes, and that's going to happen at about 10 o'clock. So we'll get to that here shortly, but that is on the agenda for today. I guess with nothing else, we can get into the packet today. At the beginning of your packet, there are, I believe, 8 resolutions. They're all budget amendments, and I'd like to take these all together. They run pages 11 to 25. 2 of those we're going to amend by voice vote as Cindy reads these without any objection from the body. We've just transferred some monies a couple of different places, made a couple of allowances. So if somebody wants to pull something as we read it or objects to the amendment, we'll deal with that at the time. So we're going to go through these 8. We'll amend the 2, which are pages, I believe, 13 and 23. When she reads those, then we'll vote on all of them at once.
Okay, we're on page 11, which is item 1-1. This will be resolution 14-1-1 to amend the 2013 Committees and Commissions budget for expenditures that were not anticipated during the original budget process. Fiscal note, the excess expenditure of $6,000 will be funded with a transfer from Information and Communications budget to Committees and Commissions budget. The adjustment to the budget totals $6,000. Item 1-2, which will be numbered 14-1-2, to amend the 2013 budget for the system's voice over IP function for additional expenditures that were not anticipated during the original budget process. Fiscal note, no additional cost to Wood County. The source of the funding is higher than budgeted revenues within the voice over IP department. The adjustment to the budget totals $1,000.
And this is one we are going to amend. Supervisor Meyer.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The budget amounts need to be amended, so from account 51-451 voice over IP, the credit of $2,000, and the local department charges a debit of $2,000.
Okay, I have a motion to that effect for the amendment, a second by Clendenning. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, by voice vote, all in favor of the amendment, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Okay. On to the next one.
Sure. We're on page 15, which is item 1-3. This is resolution 14-1-3 to amend the 2013 budgets within the Human Resources Department for transfer of available appropriations from one function to another function within the department. Fiscal note, no additional cost to Wood County. The additional appropriations needed for Human Resources Labor Relations are available and are not anticipated to be spent in Human Resources Administration. The adjustment to the budget totals $9,200. Page 17, which is item 1-4 in your packet, which will be numbered resolution 14-1-4. To seek county board approval to amend the 2013 emergency management budget for unanticipated state aid monies and to appropriate those monies to emergency management. Fiscal note, no additional cost to Wood County. The source of the funding is unanticipated revenues from the State of Wisconsin Department of Military Affairs. The adjustment to the budget totals $23,000. Page 19, which is item 1-5, renumbered resolution 14-1-5. To seek county board approval to amend the 2013 budget of building numbering identification for additional expenditures that were not anticipated during the original budget process. Fiscal note, no additional cost to Wood County. The source of the funding is unanticipated revenues from projects for Wood County townships. The adjustment to the budget totals $13,000. Page 21, which is item 1-6 in your packet, which will be numbered resolution 14-1-6, to amend the 2013 budgets for Victim Witness Task Force for expenditures not included in the 2013 budget process. Fiscal note, transfer of $500 from available victim witness designated fund balance. As of December 31st, 2013, the fund balance designated for Victim Witness Task Force was $3,569. The adjustment to the budget totals $500. Page 23, which is item 1-7, which will be numbered resolution 14-1-7, to amend the 2013 budget of various highway functions listed for the purpose of funding higher than anticipated expenditures. Fiscal note, to transfer $157,892 from available balance in contingency to highway snow removal. At the time of this request, the funds available in contingency are $157,892. All other budget overages of $1,079,000 are being funded with available unused appropriations in other functions, unanticipated revenues, or available balances in highway non-lapsing balances.
This is another one we're going to do this way. Just for all you parliamentarians out there, I'm looking at Supervisor Wagner in front of me. Really, before we amended this, we should have had a motion on the floor to to bring him to the floor. We're doing it this way without objection. So if there's anybody who objects to it, we'll do that. So Supervisor Minor on the amendment?
Oh, the amendment, okay. I'm sorry. We need to amend this for the snow removal portion, which if you look down on the resolution is to the right-hand side of Chairman Plimmel's name and Supervisor Alwarden's name. So from account number 53312 snow removal, that credit is going to be $127,892. And the debit to the contingency account, account number 51590, will also be $127,892, and that every place it is referred to in the resolution be changed accordingly.
Okay, do you have a second to that amendment by Henkel? Any discussion on that amendment? All right, all in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now I'll kind of go a little bit backwards here, but I guess the point is that everybody understands what we're doing. Now I need a motion to approve all of those resolutions by Supervisor Wagner, second by Supervisor Bry. You have one more here after that? I'm sorry. I wrote pages 13 to 23 down as we were going to that one for the amendment. I apologize.
So we're on page 25, which is item 1-8 in your packet, which will be numbered resolution 14-1-8. I just want to get through. This is to amend the 2013 budget of the County Forest State Aid at the following function for additional expenditures that were not anticipated during the original budget process. Fiscal note, no cost to Wood County. The source of funding is unanticipated revenues from a grant. The adjustment to the budget totals $4,000.
I'm sure that Supervisor Wagner's motion and Supervisor Bry's second included that particular resolution.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I got to write this stuff down better. Okay. Any discussion on any of those? All right. Please, and we did this too so we can go to the board as little as possible till we get all these issues resolved. All right, if everyone would please vote then. Not yet. Supervisor Moody. And a confirmation by Supervisor Pollock. Oh, there.
Hold your arm out.
One more. Small victories.
Yes.
Those resolutions passed unanimously 18-0. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. Page 27 in your packet, minutes of the Health and Human Services Committee of December 9th. Any questions there? On 27,
So, Ms.
Supervisor Rosa.
at the appropriate time, I would like to just make a comment.
This is as appropriate as any.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I don't sound like I'm on either, do I? No. Okay, well, I will talk really loud, okay? There was a document put out by the Center for State and Local Government Excellence, and it was entitled Local Health Department Workforce Recruitment and Retention Challenges and Opportunities. And we were one of the health departments that was interviewed for this document, and it is an excellent, excellent document. And I felt that we were an excellent portion of that document. So it just goes to show you that Wood County really continues to have far-reaching effects across our state, and to a wonderful advantage for Wood County because it shows the quality of health department that we have. There is a website that you can go to access the full document, and if you would like that website, we'll be glad to share that with you. But I just wanted to say that Wood County did a marvelous job in participating with that. They interviewed me as the chairman, they interviewed Sue as the health officer, and Ed Reed was interviewed because this was a workforce development document. So it really portrayed Wood County as being on the cutting edge with recruitment and retention of its employees, and our health department is to be commended for that participation.
Thank you, Anna. All right, so page 27, first page of the minutes, followed by 28. Sue Comferman's report from the Health Department, beginning on 29, 30, 31, and 32. Director Redder's report from our Human Services Department, beginning on 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, and redesigning Wisconsin's dementia care system, a stakeholder summit, beginning on 39, 40, 41. Report from Edgewater Haven on 42, and they are making progress down there. For any of those who have not driven by, might want to do so, as well as page 43. Some of their census numbers on 44. The Veteran Service Officers Report from December 9th on 45, 46. Minutes of the Public Safety Committee of December 9th on page 47, 8, 9, 50. The Humane Officers Report, October 28th to November 24th and 51. The report from the 25th of November to the 30th of November on 52. Coroner's Monthly Activity Report is on 53. And then pages 54 through 60 are various jail population and other numbers there, 54 to 60. Are there any questions on any of that from the Public Safety Committee? Any questions? Okay. Page 61 in your packet is the SEED minutes, Conservation, Education, and Economic Development Committee of January 8th, and that is 61. Supervisor Hinkle.
I just wanted the county board to formally notice that we have selected a new planning and zoning director, and it's someone very familiar to all of you. It's Jason Grunenberg, who has proved his worth already.
Thanks, Jason. Congratulations, Owen. About 17 years? That's what we've been here? Well, anyway, congratulations.
Thank you.
So page 61 is the start of that report. 62, 63. The Loan Review Board on 64 and 65. Golden Sands Resource Conservation and Development Council reports, November 21st. They start on page 66. I won't read the topics or the committees on the top of everyone, but 66, 67, 68, and 9. And as you go through those, they will go to page 77. Is there any question? Anybody make any notes on any of those? Okay, we have various reports from UW Extension, starting with Peter Manley's on page 78. And those will run from 78 to 91, starting with Peter's, going through Matt Lippert's and on. Any questions? I'll give you a minute to go through those. If you made any notes, those are their monthly comments. No questions there. Starting on page 92, we have the monthly reports from Jerry Stork and his people, the Land Conservation Office over there. They begin on 92, 93. This is where Jason gets formally noticed. It says Director of Planning and Zoning at the top of page 94, and their report from Planning and Zoning, as well as 95, 96, 97, 98. Are these reports getting longer since you're in charge now? Remember that? The new org chart on 99. A position description in there for planner, land records coordinator on 100, 101, 102. The geographic information, the GIS specialist, position description on 103, 104, and 105. And I know they're working on those. 106, 107. Any questions on any of those? 108, 09. Page 110 is the surveyor's 2013 year-end report, as well as 111. 112 is a blank page. Page 113, minutes of the Judicial and Legislative Committee of December 18th, as well as 114. A draft resolution that they've been working on for quite some time, 115, they continue to work on. The child support monthly report that comes from Brent Gruwink on 116. No questions yet. Corp Council's monthly letter and update on 117. Notice of injury and claims on 118. Highway Infrastructure Recreation Committee of January 9 on 119. 20. 21, 22, 23. Current project updates from various parts of the Parks Department and Highway Departments are coming up on 124, 125, 26, 127, and 128. As you can see, we're starting another year on forestry, but last year, I believe, either Al or Trent, that was a record year, wasn't it? So we should assume we're going to expect about the same again next year, or? Fingers crossed. All right, 129 in your packet is the first resolution from the Highway Infrastructure Recreation.
This will be Resolution 14-1-9 to authorize out-of-state travel for the Highway Commissioner to attend the 2014 Transportation Development Association Fly-In in Washington, D.C. on April 2nd and 3rd, 2014. Fiscal note, air, hotel, and meals totaling $1,220.
Okay, I have a motion by Murphy, a second by Hocamp. Any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion? Please vote. I'm going to make a suggestion too, Ruth. If you don't have a lot of stuff back there, maybe you want to take your name tag and move up to Supervisor Hendler's seat. Maybe that will help, so you don't have to keep getting up. We're still not there.
Do you want to move forward, Ruth, to Peter Hendler's spot?
That'll help.
Mr. Wagner won't wait.
Not hard.
There we go.
Just sit there.
Just sit there, Ruth, if you want, or you're going to be getting up and down constantly. Okay, don't have to. That resolution passed 17-1. Brings us to another resolution from the Highway Infrastructure and Recreation Committee in your packet, page 131.
This will be Resolution 14-1-10, approval of the 2014 Wood County Forest Annual Work Plan. Fiscal note, potential loss of state aid revenues in the amount of $39,599.
For the reading of the resolution, I need a motion for approval, please, by Clendenning, second by Murphy again. Any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion? Please vote. Trent, you need to be confirmed. Jerry, you need to be confirmed. There we go. Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you. Page 133 to 139, what you just voted on. Page 141 in your packet, another resolution from the HERC Committee.
This will be Resolution 14-1-11, to acquire land for addition to the Wood County Forest in exchange for land currently entered in the County Forest Program, plus cash, and to seek Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources approval of the proposed addition and withdrawal of Wood County Forest land. Fiscal note, in addition to the land exchange, the county will receive $35,068.46 in cash.
Heard the reading of the resolution. Motion by Roser, second by Brad. Any discussion on this resolution? Supervisor Clendenning first, then Supervisor Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like some conversation on easement in case we ever do a forest easement on that and the accessibility to getting that forest product out of there. I understand that, I know it is not landlocked. However, it does restrict us from taking timber out of there. I'd like that explained, if I could, please.
Supervisor Meyer, I guess I'll let you.
We would have to, anytime we want to take forest products out of that parcel would be gained, we'd have to get permission from the landowner. The current landowner has no problem with that. He does have a problem with giving us a permanent easement in writing, but if we just ask, it should not be an issue. Especially in this area where land doesn't trade hands very often at all. It's not like any other, really, it's not like any other township in the county. Land stays in families for decades. So we don't foresee an issue, but we would be asking each time we go in to harvest that.
Supervisor Wagner.
Thank you, sir. I noticed in the handout that was given to us as we came in today that there's an estimate of the value of the timber on that land at $60-some-odd thousand. Can you tell us what the source of that estimate was?
Chad, or Alan, I'm sorry. Alan wants to. Chad, did you, I can't see if Fritz is back there. Fritz, you did the cruise, you and Steve Grant, the DNR forester, did the cruise on that?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be through them.
All right, so our forester, in conjunction with the state forester, did the appraisal.
Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Clendenning.
I'm still not satisfied. I understand, you know, everything is verbal here, that the landowner said no. I don't know why something couldn't have been in writing to say that if we ever needed easement, there would be no problem. And then there's always, of course, death and land changing hands. And I know a couple of years ago, we had problems with the same thing. I don't feel comfortable voting yes on this.
Any others? Any other discussion? Supervisor Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question I had is, how did we acquire the 40 acres originally? Was there an intent? Did we purchase it, land deed or tax deed? By going back too far?
That's back in the 30s and 40s. Yeah, I'm assuming it was probably tax deed. That would be my assumption.
So it wasn't,
county forest was.
it wasn't purchased for a purpose. We didn't have it, even though it's changed, that we know of.
Not as far back as no.
Okay, thank you.
And as a general comment, it's always been our goal to kind of square off those boundaries where we can and not have parcels just sticking out in places. Any other discussion? Supervisor Mahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm somewhat apprehensive here. This is the second Cranberry Grove that we've done land swaps with recently. I'd like to know what's there must be something that's prompting this. We're not going to them, asking them for a land trade. They're coming to us. There must be some kind of thought process there.
Want to keep going?
Again, if Chairman Breyer.
Chairman Breyer, you want to turn to?
Sure. Defer to Trent.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Al.
Sure.
Actually, Mr. and Mrs. Raisin approached us. This will fit in nicely with a hopeful expansion that they're planning years down the road. So they approached us, which is why the land transaction policy was initiated for the 2-to-1 trade. And that land transaction policy was voted on by this county board a number of years ago.
Supervisor Winch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would tend to agree with Mr. Glendenning. Shouldn't, or would it be possible to hold this up for 30 days so we can get some kind of written easement? What's the...
A written easement was not, we tried that already, and that was a definite no.
I'd have to believe that, this could cause an issue in the future. Thank you.
Just so people aren't familiar with this particular piece of property, this is contiguous to county forest.
Yes.
It blocks off a piece. It's not a standalone where we don't have access. The easiest access happens to be across private landowners' parcel of property.
Yeah.
Supervisor Clendenning.
Sorry to speak so much on this, but I was at the meeting this morning where this was discussed by the committee, and it was indicated there that this is a 2/3 vote, but this paper indicates it's a simple majority.
Mr. Castrovalls.
Is this on? I'm not aware that statutorily that a 2/3 majority is required on this. I'm not aware of that. So if there may be some land transaction policy that requires that, and Fritz is nodding his head yes, so I would ask.
Is it through Chapter 28 of statutes that requires a 2/3?
I'm not sure about Chapter 28, but it is in our land transaction policy.
Okay, so it's part of our land transaction policy. All right, any other discussion? Our clerk is catching up here. While she's doing that, Trent had one other.
Yeah, and we're always looking at, when we can get acquisitions that square off parcels and make things a little easier. This might be a neutral thing for us. As far as access, that doesn't worry me, like I said, as much in this area as, say, the issues we had in Dexterville, right by the cemetery there. There are issues out in the county that private access across private lands is an issue. I'm sorry, I can't see that it will be an issue. I understand landowners' apprehension about signing an easement forever and ever, forever and ever. I understand that apprehension. Whether I agree with it, that's neither here nor there. But I understand their apprehension about not wanting to sign a permanent easement. I truly, truly don't foresee a problem with access here.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, I'd ask you then to please vote. That resolution passed 13-5. Thank you. I've got so little, it's 5 minutes after 10, but if you don't care, I'm going to go through the rest of this packet and then we can get on with the architects because we're so close to the end of this. Page 143 in your packet, Aging Disability Resource Center, their minutes of November 14th. Amended minutes on 144, 145, 146, and 7. The ADRC minutes from December 12th on 148, 149, 150, 151, 152 is a blank page. 153, McMillan Memorial Library Board of Trustees of November 20th, as well as 154. Their minutes from December 18th on 155. Minutes of the South Central Library System on 157. 8, 9, 160, 161, 2, and then page 163 of the packet. I'm going to hold that till the end of the meeting. Okay? I'm going to hold that till the end of the meeting. And then that brings us to our special order of business, which is a presentation by Venture Architects. Don, I'm going to give you the floor and the microphone if you want to do some introductions.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. We really are honored this morning to be able to listen in to kind of what's been going on with the conceptual development of how we're going to meet some of our space needs in Wood County. I don't know how many people saw the Marshfield News Herald yesterday, but they depicted very well exactly what's going to happen today. We contracted with Venture Architects to help us with some conceptual development and some suggestions and helping us to kind of sort out with their expertise the way that we were going to address some of the recommendations that were in the Space Needs Committee. Those recommendations were reported to you in November of 2012. I thought that the newspaper did a good job with John's comment that this is a big puzzle that we need to put together. And the committee has been looking and talking and suggesting and listening to what Venture Architects is proposing. And the presentation today is not going to have any cost with any of the discussion. There are no recommendations. It is just an informational meeting to let you know the thoughts that have been coming from the current committee that is working, and then the conceptual designs and development that have been coming from Venture Architects. We also wanted the county board input from the things that you hear today. We're not looking for criticism of any specific thing that is said today, but we want to kind of know if you have thoughts about the things that are going to be presented today. Does something strike you as being totally unreasonable? Do you have a comment? The committee is meeting after this county board meeting to look at the input that came from this committee and then to further look at some designs. So really this is an update meeting, an informational meeting to let you know what's been going on. And as always, every county board supervisor and member of the public are invited to the meeting. They are publicly posted, and we need you to come because a lot of the discussion that takes place at that meeting is good stuff, okay? Venture Architects has a packet of information at each one of your desks, so as we go through this presentation, if you would make notes on the side of comments that you would like to make, questions that you would like to ask, and anything, please do that, and then there'll be a time for Q&A at the end. I'm sorry, Mr. Wagner, did you have a question?
No, I'm sorry, just thinking out loud.
Oh, okay, all right. So please make those notes, and at the end we will deal with those, and John and Tom are going to come and give the presentation. John, they'll introduce themselves. John Kane and Tom Polette.
Good morning, everyone.
You want to use the mic?
Okay.
Yeah, because the public doesn't hear unless you use the mic, John.
Good morning, everyone. It's our fault that it's cold this morning.
Yes.
Every time we come here, it's cold, so I apologize for that before we start. I think it broke my record 2 Mondays ago, and well, it is what it is, isn't it? Thank you very much for having hired us to conduct this study with you. We're very grateful for your consideration in that regard. Before I go any further and take you through what I apologize is something of a fairly lengthy presentation. There are 41 slides that we're going to go through. And I'll try to go through them as quickly as possible. I hope I don't bore you too much. But I do want to first recognize and acknowledge the county board and the Space Needs Committee that put together the report that Don indicated was presented to all of you in November of 2012. I think without this work, we would not be where we are today with regards to the work that we've been able to do in a relatively short period of time. So thank you very much for having done that, and for also the continuation of those committee members to be part of the committee that we're working with really helps a lot in terms of the continuity. I think what we've been able to add to this document, where there are a lot of discussion, as I would describe it, as qualitative based, we're able to provide a lot of quantity-based evidence and proof, if you will, that the comments that were made in this report are carrying us through into the work that we're doing now. And as Donna mentioned, we're at an interim point where we've been able to collect most of the information that we need, and we're starting to also now look at options and ideas. So if I take you through this, and I'm on page 2, the project approach, big picture, I think it's important, and we've done many studies like this throughout Wisconsin and the Midwest. It's really easy to get bogged down into the details, and we know we will get into those details at some point or another. But for us to try to stay at the big picture, where is county government going? What kind of facilities are needed to bring you through not only the next 5-10 years, but well beyond that? Our approach is very typical. The bullets that I've noted here: defining the need, establishing clear priorities, developing those plans that support those priorities, determine the cost, justify the cost, and then seek county board approval. If you go to the next slide, page 3, the steps that we have taken through, and we're halfway through, include the visioning or development of goals and criteria for the study, the programming where we've met with all the department heads, every one of them in the county, to get their ideas and thoughts and gel out of that those departments that need space, and we'll talk very specifically about that. Building assessments. We're in the phase now where we're developing concepts and ideas. We're starting to look at options and their evaluation. We'll certainly be doing that this morning rather. And then recommendations and approval. Slide 4 talks about the schedule. We're at a halfway point, as I mentioned. We've completed the visioning, the programming, much of the assessment. We've developed lots of concepts. We're here in the middle of the evaluation phase, step 5, if you see the lines on the left-hand side. This point right here. So we're at that point where now we're evaluating various options. This is also the first time we're coming to you as a county board, giving you an interim presentation. And our plan is that at the mid-March date, that county board meeting, there would be a final wrap-up with regards to the recommendations. As we met with them, and I'm on slide 5, as we met with the committee, it was important for us to understand why are we doing this. And out of all the various ideas and thoughts that came forward, there are really 4 major drivers that we see are going to help to determine the future of the facilities for Wood County. Clearly, increasing departmental efficiency is number 1. And if we can do that through building design and planning, relocation of departments, etc., that's first and foremost in our minds. Likewise, with that, if we can do that, then we know inherently we're going to improve customer service, and that's a real important consideration as well to all of your constituents, the taxpayers. Pay for today, correctly plan for tomorrow. What does that mean? It means that we need to be fiscally responsible and conservative. We need to pay for our needs today without, if you will, painting ourselves into a corner in the future that we will say 10, 15 years from now, I wish we hadn't done that. So that's the idea behind that. And as always, if we do see construction projects coming out of this study at some point, that we need to be sure that we're being cost effective with the use of those important dollars. Slide 6 is really the foundation for the work that we've been doing up to date. And as we noted at the top, the priorities in no particular order, there are 8 things that have really bubbled up to the top, and I want to take just a brief moment to explain each one of them. I think many of them will be familiar to you if you spend any time here at the courthouse. The need to consolidate the Wisconsin Rapids Human Services into one location. It's spread into a number of locations. We'll talk more about that in a minute. There are various departments here at the courthouse that are really struggling for space. And as we'll say, they're not growing in staff, they're just really tight. They don't function well for the space that they're in. The building here is, I'm as old as the building, so I can't say anything critical about it. It's a wonderful, the bones are great. But some of the systems are original, and it's time at one point or another to get glasses, and there's some things that need to be done, and so we've been looking at that. Elevator, toilets, boilers, etc. You're familiar with that, I'm sure. Security is high on everybody's list of concerns in every county that we work with. And we know we live in a world today that's very different from the world that we lived in when we were kids, or our parents when we grew up with our parents. We'll talk about that. Parking is often an issue in downtown areas, and here in Wisconsin Rapids, that certainly goes without saying. We need to make a decision at some point with regards to the buildings across the street, the annex building. The Marshfield City Hall, and the fact that the lease is coming up this calendar year, causes us to have to visit that issue and determine how do we meet the needs of the Marshfield community if in fact we're moving those departments to Norwood. And then, perhaps the one that's the most significantly intangible is the last item, addressing future justice needs. And that has to do with the courts, the jail, and the sheriff. That's kind of the, how do they say, the bull in the china shop, if you will. So we'll get to that before we're done here again. Slide 7 shows you graphically where the facilities are that you currently have in their various properties. And just very briefly, at the courthouse in the annex, you've got general government, justice, and human services. The 12th Street property to the southeast of downtown, human services is there. Riverview Clinic is where you've recently moved the health department and a recent upgrade on their lease. Centralia across the river is where the remaining portion of human services in Wisconsin Rapids is. And then the 33 acres purchased a number of years ago up near the highway garage, northwest of town. So now I'm going to take each one of the 8 priorities and go through them with a little more information. So the first one has to do with human services. So now I'm on slide 9. Very briefly, as I just mentioned, there are 3 locations where human services is. They're spread throughout town. 12th Street, about a third of the department is there. I won't read off all the square footages. You can read those for yourself. Courthouse is the largest location here across the hallway, and then Centralia has the remaining portions, so they're spread throughout, and you can imagine the issues that causes. We firmly believe that one of the major priorities in this study is to seek opportunities to consolidate into single location. We see a number of benefits to that. Not the least of which is improved customer service. Where do I go? I go one place and not 3. Fewer facilities to maintain, and that provides a number of opportunities and benefits. Better department management. We know where people are. We're more accountable if we're all in one location. Better departmental communication. It's just, imagine yourself running a business, you're in 3 spots. If you can bring them all together, the opportunities to work together cooperatively, collaboratively, communication management becomes a major issue. Energy efficiency and lower operating costs provided by a single facility, and then the opportunity for shared resources, the things that we kind of forget about. Copy machines, conference rooms, all of those things that when you're spread out, you duplicate them. When you bring them all in one location, you can share. Graphically, what that includes and represents, and when we met with Kathy and her staff, we looked at what they currently had in terms of their space, and if we were to consider some kind of a new facility, either new in construction or remodeled, take an existing building, whatever, what would those space needs be at a first initial glance? And roughly speaking, it's about 26,000 square feet of department space, and that includes all the corridors and janitor closets and all the things that are in that department. It would not include public lobbies or elevators or stairs or other things. So that's not a number that's a building, but that gets us towards a building design, 26,000 square feet. Slide 12 talks about, well, how do we do that if we're in one location? Without any evaluation at this point, though I think we're getting through some thoughts in that regard, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it after this meeting today. Here are some possibilities. Take the 12th Street property where you have a human services building. We could build on that location. We'd have to acquire property to make that happen. We would either expand the existing building or maybe tear the existing building down and build new. Again, these are big picture ideas. Have you considered this? Or have you thought about that? The Tribune building, we know, is available across the street. There's been some requests to explore that. That we've done. The building itself is not large enough to take on human services. So if we were to acquire the building, we'd have to build an addition and do extensive remodeling of the building that's currently there. The courthouse, there are a number of opportunities here on this site for human services to locate. Some of them might require the closing of Avon Street. There are going to be some issues related to that. We've got utilities in the street that would have to be relocated. So it's either an addition or maybe, depending upon other bigger factors related to the study, there becomes land space available in the building to move human services into this building. 17th Street property, the potential to build new there, certainly. And then any other unidentified sites that may come up during the course of the study or the consideration of this one option want and need to be studied. Health Department, I'm on slide 13. Health Department is a separate and autonomous department. There are obviously connections with human services, and certainly depending on what county you're in, some places it's called Health and Human Services. Your county has made the decision at this point to maintain separate departments. So we did look and talk with the Health Department staff. They've got what we think is a fantastic lease at Riverview from certainly a financial perspective. We are going to take that analysis and compare it against new construction or county-owned facilities. What we have discussed with them, that your current lease is roughly 8,300 square feet. If they were to move to a new location, and I'm sensitive about the numbers, that if in a best case scenario, there are some other space needs that they do have. We don't think they're extensive, but from a net or an assignable square footage, it's like 500 or 600 square feet. It's in conference spaces, maybe some of the offices made larger and more efficient. But the point to be made is they're working very well in the 8,300 square feet. So I don't want to mislead anyone in that regard. Health Department options, what might we be studying as we're going to be looking at this in more detail in the next 2 weeks? Clearly, one of the options is to simply stay as is and maintain the lease, and as it comes up, continue to renew that lease. We've already here also suggested that there may be consideration to co-locate wherever human services ends up in a single building, still separate departments. And so the slide to the right simply identifies the same options that we're looking at for human services. So we've got both. For health, it's not only a financial issue, it's an operational issue, it's a location issue. Took a lot of time to get through the human services. That's a big issue. What's happening in the other departments that are here in the county? Let's go to slide 16. Of all the departments that we interviewed, we made an initial assessment interview with all of them. There are 9 departments that came forward and said, we need more space. And they're listed here on the left. I won't read them to you. You probably know many of them already. I think the key to this one slide is, as I alluded to a minute ago, is that the needs are for the fact that the spaces that they're currently in are inadequate. They function well as it is, but could they use more space? Many of them, I think, quite seriously could. Some of them even more than others. I think of the clerk of court across the hallway as being a significant example of that. There are a couple departments that anticipate growth, clerk of courts being one of them, and the district attorney being another. The work environment mentioned for dispatch, emergency management, and systems, those are departments that are on the first floor in the basement, and they've got moisture issues, they've got water issues. We think that a high priority in this study is to find an answer for those 3 departments. I think there are potential accidents waiting to happen in the basement in that respect, particularly with regards to the systems. If I go to slide 17, what does all that mean graphically? The blue lines show, by comparison with each of the departments, their current sizes, what we would call department square footage. So then in those conversations with the department heads, we ask the question, what kind of needs might you need going forward, not only now but in the future? And that's how the green lines appeared. So we use this as a planning tool. This is not to say that if a project were really to come out of the study that this would exactly be the square footages, but it gets us to a point where we have something to work with as we talk about various options in the big picture, if you will, as I mentioned at the beginning. So then maybe more qualitative a discussion with respect to those departments leading on page 18, and there are going to be 3 slides here, the first floor, second, and third floor. We'll take each one of those departments and just talk about what those needs are in a narrative form. Victim witness, they need a waiting area. Waiting area is in the office. It doesn't particularly work, or it's in the hallway. Emergency management is looking potentially for additional staff, certainly a larger emergency operations center, and like so many of the other departments, storage for equipment and other things is in short supply. Dispatch, they need space. They're just so shoehorned into the space that's in the basement. They need more space for their workstations, likewise storage, and some staff support areas, larger staff lockers. And then the systems, they're spread out. And in the diagram where I've noted systems that are in 2 different locations in the basement, it's hard to manage the staff. They just don't function as well as if they were in a single location. They need storage areas, setup space, and they're and all 3 of these departments, emergency, dispatch, and systems, have moisture issues. The second floor, I'm on slide 19, planning and zoning. If you've ever been up there, you kind of see the problem that they have. I mean, they're literally working on top of each other, and so they have the need for work areas, conference rooms, and likewise a waiting area. Sheriff's Department, which is on the second floor below us, it's interesting. What you would see as a single department with some security and other things is divided like right in half with this public hallway. So it's the rare case where you can literally walk up to the sheriff's door and say, "Hi, how are you? Are you here?" We think that's a real serious security breach, if you will. So security is a serious consideration. There's the need for a reception area, and just to consolidate their offices into a single location is important for them. And then finally, the third floor. Likewise, the district attorney is very tight. They need additional space for another attorney, file areas, conference rooms, and record storage. I'm on slide 20. And then the clerk of court, I've already mentioned them briefly across the hallway. Let's talk then about the third priority, being the courthouse infrastructure. As I mentioned before, it's a great building. It's the seat of county government. I think it's excellent in that regard. some things weren't, it's time to do some upgrades. The building has only one elevator, and there are times the elevator is down, and I'm told that they have to carry people up and down the stairs. So any planning to do work here at the courthouse needs to consider a second elevator. The toilets were adequately sized at the time the building was built, but if we were to do any construction here in the building, we would certainly consider revisiting those toilet rooms, both for staff as well as for the public. And then we've done some preliminary work relative to the mechanical systems in the building, and basically the systems are old. It's time to do some upgrades. Not only are parts difficult to get, the maintenance is becoming more significant. There's zoning and heating and cooling issues throughout the building, and those are comfort issues relative to the staff. I mentioned, I'm on to slide 23, courthouse security. We've done a lot of things successfully to bring you where you are today, not the least of which is the fact that where at one point there were many ways of getting into this building, there's really only one public entrance now, and that's at the main door. And that's noted here on this first floor plan. If we were splitting hairs, we might be concerned about the door down in Terry's area, the garage area, where you can kind of sneak in, if you will. There's probably some space, adequate, limited, but adequate, coming into the front door, where if you were to at some point make a consideration to put a metal detector and other things that you've seen other counties do, the space is minimal, but it could probably work, and you've seen other counties where they've done that. Not ideal so much, but as I said, counties have done that. The second floor, the building entrances are either locked from the outside or they're card access, and that's what the CA stands for. And that applies both to an entrance on the north side for human services and then the sheriff's department to the south. Where the security issue becomes a major concern for us is when we get up to this court's floor. It's just the nature of the building and the time that it was built that the concern for separating prisoners from defendants and inmates and judges and the whole works was not an issue. But we know now that it is a huge issue. And it's kind of a knock on wood that we haven't had any really serious concerns in that regard here in our state. And I pray to God that that will never happen. If we begin to think about the future, however, and if any consideration were made to do extensive remodeling of this building and or other new construction options, this would be a major driver. And perhaps one of the bigger concerns that we have coming out of the study, and that's the lack of security and safety in this courthouse. And you're not alone in that regard, and you know that. When prisoners come from the jail, they come up through the same elevator that the public does. They walk in the same hallway as the family members and the defendants and everyone else. When the jury goes to deliberation, they come out of the courtroom, they go down in the hallway, and they go either to the jury rooms to the north or the south. So again, they're confronted with family members and people like that. In a new courts facility or remodeled courts facility, we separate them so they never see each other. That's something that we continue to discuss. Item 5 is courthouse parking. I'm on slide 28. Quick inventory, there are 302 spaces around the county, including cars on the street. Do you know you're getting a roundabout? Yes. Soon, I understand. I mean, like within a couple months, they're going to start tearing this corner up and get one of those dealies, and you can be like you're in Europe or something like that.
We're not excited.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, really. Maybe they'll paint it pink around the circle. So that's going to happen here real soon, and you're going to lose a few parking spaces. As you think about the courthouse and its future needs, parking may become an issue. And we've just simply noted graphically some of the potential considerations for future acquisition. I'm told that some of the houses that are marked where it says 60 cars you actually owned at one point. Is that a correct statement? Yes. I also am aware, because we've been approached by a realtor, that what it says 100, and that's the greenhouse, is for sale because they've sent us material on its, maybe I'll buy it. Kidding, no. So parking is going to be a consideration as we go forward. Item number 6 is the annex building, that dear gem across the street. John, come on. I'm on slide 31. There's some good things and there's some bad things. The good thing is that there's fiber connection to the building, and we don't want to lose sight of that, and that's not cheap, and you own it. The bad thing is that there's some real problems with this piece of building in its current state. And probably anybody in the health department would tell you, give you a long dissertation on what they were. You've got mold in the basement. There's only one interior fire stair. There's no ADA accessibility, and the list goes on and on. And for those of you who've never been in the building, we've given you a few pictures on slide 32. It looks great on the outside, but honest, it's kind of a dump on the inside. Is that a fair statement? Yeah. Okay. So no disagreement there, I guess. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. Well, yeah. So what do you do with it? So slide 33, and these are the things that we're throwing around as ideas. You tear it down. They tear it down and you build new. And you could put a 3-story building there, and it'd give you about a 16,000 square foot building. And there's some departments that, in all honesty, could go into that, including systems, dispatch, emergency management, maybe parks and forestry go there, but they have some other ideas as to maybe where they would like to go long term as well. You tear it down and you build a parking lot. They give you 20 cars right across the street from the main entrance to the building. Or you sell the building as property if there's a buyer available. So those are some things that we're talking about with the committee. Let's jump up to Marshfield. So I'm on slide 35. The hospital turned City Hall turned, what's it going to become? Apartments? I don't know. Something. It's going to say City Hall? Okay. Well, you've got a lease of 8,500 square feet, expires in June. You probably have opportunities to extend that lease if you so chose. The departments that are there now include Human Services, Veteran Services, and the Sheriff's Department, and they're the square footages that you can see. We met likewise with those department heads. This is slide 36. And depending upon, well, not depending upon where they go, but in all conditions, the space needs that they have, basically taking what they've got and moving it to a new location if they move out of that building. And you can see graphically, Human Services, Marshfield represents the largest portion. The Sheriff and the Veteran Services they work hand in hand with those departments here in Wisconsin Rapids. So it's a wonderful presence of Wood County government in Marshfield, and I think that the committee has been very specific with us that is inviolate. I mean that's something that's cast in concrete or stone, not moving out of Marshfield. So what do we do with that space? Slide 37, and this is a quick graphic plan diagram of the Norwood facility. The pink color represents that same square footage. So what are the 3 options? It seems like they fall into 3 simple categories. The move-in, as is, and try to describe a little bit each of the pieces. That 6-sided, is that 6 or 8? 6-sided piece. I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. That's the gym. So we can fit everything into that building. We can take what we had on the previous slide, but some of you would have to move into the gym to make that work. There are some meeting rooms and home ec kind of things in that sort of L-shaped place, and then the patient rooms are the area to the left. And that's the space that's available. So theoretically, you can move in as is, minimal remodeling. Maybe that's a short-term solution. The addition and remodeling says, well, maybe we take veteran services and the sheriff and move them into the patient room area. We consolidate or take all the human services piece and move that into the more rectangularized piece, and then add the additional space to that. That's what addition and remodeling means. Or we take everybody and we put them in a new building somewhere on that site, and there's certainly a lot of land available for that. So we're going to price out each one of these, and that's part of our due diligence as we move forward. The last item is the future justice needs. And if I look on slide 39, where it identifies those very briefly, the courts, I think there's been some consistent discussion that in time Wood County will likely receive a fourth judgeship. You're very high on the list. Obviously that's in the hands of the state legislature, but you're pretty high up. So we need to recognize that. So someday there will be a fourth judgeship here, we strongly believe. The jail, built not that long ago, has 127 existing beds. You're at 220, I believe, something like that. Is a correct number, Sheriff? 200? So if everybody were here in town, it'd be a 200-bed jail. So you're making up the difference by renting beds in Waupaca County, and you've got a nice lease arrangement there. You're currently leasing, you went from 55 last year to 65 this year, I believe, if that's right?
60 to 65.
60 to 65, thank you. And potentially up to 75 in 2016. And then the sheriff's area, I've noted already some of the things, the issues for them. I said this is kind of the bull in the china shop kind of deal. I mean, we're looking 20, 30 years down the road in terms of where Wood County might answer their space needs. But at least to the need, we believe that ultimately in the study there should be a master plan for the future that is phased appropriately. So then the question becomes, what options do we have? And in simple terms, one option is to expand here at the courthouse. So if graphically all we were to say is how might that happen? And there are more ways than just suggested in this diagram, trust me. We've got 5 different ideas for this later morning's meeting, that we create a secure entrance, as we mentioned earlier, to the west. The courts expands into, we move some things around. The clerk of courts relocates, the fourth judgeship might move into the space they're currently in. Future, we begin to fill in the spaces between the jail and the courthouse. That could be general government, that could be human services, it could be additional courts. And then the jail, and again, this is where land acquisition becomes a conversation. One suggestion is, and each box represents 100 beds just graphically, that we're expanding horizontally, if you will. Again, this is what this might look like in 20 years, 30 years, something like that. But some of the decisions that get made now in the next 5 years have impact on this. The other possibility, among many others, is, and I've gone to the last slide, 41, you revisit the decisions that were made 10 some years ago, where at that time the plan was to build, this was in 1999, to build a 136-bed jail and sheriff's department out on the 17th Street property. You voted to approve it, but I believe the funding for it was never approved. We could revisit that. We would need to revisit the number of beds. And we would strongly recommend that the courts component move out to that location as well, addressing the security issues that we alluded to. And that includes the courts, the clerk of court, the DA, register of probate, child support, and victim witness. So again, these are big picture ideas. They all have costs. They all have the need to thoroughly scrutinize them, and that's what the committee is doing. So, questions and answers or thoughts? Keeping in mind that we've not put any cost estimates on anything, and we're really at that point where The committee is just now starting to see some of the different ideas that we are going to show today.
Supervisor Clendenning.
Is this report available on the internet to the public, or would this be available to the
We
public?
can certainly provide a PDF that you can put on your website.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Supervisor Wentz.
Thank you. When we refer to the first floor, there's the auditorium area. There was no mention of any possibilities of using that for something other than an auditorium.
I think that's an excellent idea. I think it gets into that category of into the details of the various options. We think that there is opportunity for that space to be used by some of the departments that are in need of space, yes.
Back to Supervisor Clendenning.
Yeah, thank you. I see you have the Tribune building in here. Was that a consideration before? I thought it was sold. Is it not been acquired by somebody else, which is the Encourage Community Foundation?
It has been acquired by them, but they're looking to find out what to do with it also.
Okay. And have other buildings been looked at for possibility? And I'm saying what we call the River Block building across the bridge here, in which New Page owns, and now New Page just recently has a new owner, and I know that building is not fully occupied. Has such a building like that been looked at?
I would say for us, this is the first that we've heard of that option, so we want to add that to the discussion. So if we can get some information today on that.
I see Supervisor Wagner's going to tell us what they're going to do with City Hall tonight. The look on your face was great, but
No, I am not. I've had several suggestions, and some of them involve bulldozers. But my question for you is more on one of process, and I've sort of got a kick out of the headings on the pages. It said priorities in no particular order, which means that they're not really priorities, they're more of a laundry list. Who is going to choose the well, the committee is the process next that the committee is going to choose among the priorities what's most important to them, and then bring that back to you, or you're going to bring that back to us? How are we going to prioritize what our greatest needs are and what we're going to address first, second, third, and fourth? That's my question. It's a process question.
I think process-wise, we will always work through the committee, and the committee will discuss with your input thoughts and recommendations to be brought back to the county board. At least it's our experience in working with other counties that the recommendations come from the committees, and then they're discussed and debated on the board floor.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, as an architect, what can you? I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to put you on the spot now, but I would ask, from an architectural point of view, would you have priorities of an architectural nature that we should address first, second, third, and fourth?
There are like 4 or 5 that need to be handled like right away, and I can't prioritize those. I mean, what are they? I think human services is top on the list. I think because of the timing, Marshfield is top on the list. We've got to do something with the facilities in the basement. The challenge for that is there's no place to really put them in a good location long term. We can get them out of there, but is it money well spent? And so it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg in some of this stuff. I mean, you got to do some things to allow other things to happen. One of in all studies, the question is what goes first? What do we do first to help break up the log jam, so to speak? I apologize that I couldn't speak more specifically to the auditorium question, because we really need to answer some of the bigger picture issues, and then space becomes available in this building for those other departments who have those needs. So if I look at the county courthouse department needs, with the exception, and this is my own opinion, with the exception of the moisture issue in the basement, those other functions, the other departments are functioning. So is that a priority for them? Certainly it is. But is it the highest priority? Well, we would have to create space to make that happen for them. So I think in that respect, answering the human services issue is high on the list because it then frees up space for other things to happen. But if I can be so frank, talking about human services, if you get to that last slide, and this is the bowl in the china shop, and certainly we'll be talking with the committee in great detail about this afternoon. Someday you've got to address the jail issue and you've got to address the courts issue. Yeah, and so it's either you're remodeling here or you're going to build brand new. And there are huge price tags associated with both of those options that are really scary. I mean, I want to scare you to death, but you can kind of see that we can't really address the security issues here in this building, but we think that they're really important. We won't know until something happens. So I'm rambling, I'm sorry, I'm really good at that.
I appreciate it. Trust me.
Well, I'm being frank and candid, yeah.
I'm getting a better insight into your thought process, and I appreciate it.
Okay.
Those are all really good questions. I thought it was an outstanding kind of 10,000-foot view of, where we are, where we need to go. And the questions certainly make sense and are pertinent, especially for those of us who have not attended every meeting. And in some cases, try not to, because I like to see the whole plan before I pick any of the pieces. But great questions. Any other questions out there? Supervisor Hope?
Thank you. This isn't very important, but when you make a presentation to the public and you talk 17th Street, you look at this, it isn't 17th Street, it's 17th Avenue. And people are wondering, what are you doing on the east side or the west side of the river? It's 17th Avenue.
My goodness.
So,
Come here on that.
We'll clean that up.
We will. And if there are any other typos, please, 17th Avenue.
I think you're right. Those things you look at, you just know, and you tend to just gloss over them. Any other questions at this point? Any other questions? I know the committee's done a tremendous amount of work. Thank you for that. We'll continue the process.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That almost brings me to the end of the packet. We have one more resolution in the packet. May I ask the clerk to please read that?
This will be Resolution 14-1-12, and it's relating to the life and public service of Albert Buckberger.
I'd entertain a motion to that effect by Supervisor Henkel and a second by Supervisor Wagner. All in favor, please signify by aye. Aye. And then I would ask Supervisor Buckberger was here when I got here, and he's one of those people who certainly served as a mentor and helped in my orientation as I became involved with the board. I would ask that everyone please rise in a moment of silence. Thank you. Again, our condolences to the family and our sincere thank you to all the service that Mr. Buckberger, Supervisor Buckberger had in the county board, town board, and all the other organizations he was involved in. That brings me to the end of the agenda. Is there anything else that anybody needs, wants, other than to adjourn? All right, next meeting, Supervisor Alward, you making a motion to adjourn? Yeah. All right, next meeting, February 18th, I have a motion to adjourn by Supervisor Alward, a second by Supervisor Moody. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.